Dr. Lucretia Carter and her sister, Janet Caldwell Morrow, join me now. Thank you so much for being here. You have tears in your eyes, Janet.
I do.
Is it that watching the story and replaying, or what are you feeling right now?
It's a bit surreal right now because it's a story for everyone else, but for us, it was our lives. For me, it was my life. It was my everyday. And it was hard. It just reminds me of how hard it was.
This went on for 3 decades of your life. It started when you were a child.
Yes.
In and out of doctors.
Yes.
Tell me what the pain had to be debilitating.
It was very difficult. It reduced my energy level. I was always tired, and I really just didn't feel like playing the way most kids want to go outside and play. I stayed inside more so than most kids. Sports activities in school were a little more difficult. But I just kind of kept pushing through and just doing the best that I can. But I always felt different. I always felt that for some reason, things that seemed so easy for everybody else seemed a little harder for me.
Dr. Carter, you shared a room with your sister, so you were hearing her at night, I would imagine, crying, or you would hear her with your parents crying. Like, what was that like, witnessing it?
So that was very difficult. Being in the same room with someone who, you knew in the middle of the night she would get up and start screaming, not just crying, but screaming. And, that's just gut-wrenching. And to live through that, and you knew even once you got through the first time, another moment was going to happen.
So this defined your childhood?
Absolutely.
For both of you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Carter, when did you decide, as I mentioned before the break, you were witnessing all of the pain for those many, many years for Janet. When you decided to go to college, was medicine and helping your sister in your mind when you filled out the application?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I knew it was a long journey to get to medical school, but science and math were always my forte. But really experiencing going in and out of the hospital with her, it piqued my fascination with medicine. So, I just became interested in what was going on and trying to figure out what was going on with her. And to the point where I would figure out, okay, I know they're going to put her on this medicine or do this or that, because it just fascinated me.
So you're filling out the application to go to college, and you're like, I'm going to figure this out.
Absolutely.
That gives me chills. That gives me chills. So So you're away studying, or you're, doing your thing. Janet, you were still suffering from this disease. It didn't stop because she went to college.
No.
And you got to a point where you thought you would die.
It got to a critical point. I was about 28 years old. I was married at that point, had 2 children, 2 and 5, 2 boys. But it became harder and harder to function on a regular basis. Before I could get results and make myself feel better with, a couple of pills, medicine to try to ease the problems I was going through.
Because you were dealing with an intestinal issue.
Right.
So it was very complicated. It's abdominal, it's intestinal, it's in pain. Anyone who's had a stomach ache, now imagine that 3,000 times more. That's what you were dealing with.
Yes.
How many doctors do you think you saw over your life?
So many. I don't know, maybe 20 or 30, probably more than that. Because we were born in Baltimore. So we went to see many doctors in the Baltimore, Washington area. And and that's the thing, it wasn't as if we weren't trying to get help. We were going, but the answers that we were given were not necessarily fixing the problem.
Which included people believing it was in your head, which I'm going to get on the soapbox. We now know that happens disproportionately to women of color when we go in to doctors. It is proven. There have been recent articles and studies, but this was back then. People weren't even having that conversation. Right. So you were hearing, oh, it might even be in your head. So, Dr. Carter, you're in school. You start piecing the puzzle together. Yes. How is it possible you solved a mystery that 30 other doctors plus couldn't?
Well, I had the complete picture. I may not have known exactly what she was feeling, but I knew what she was going through. I knew the timeline. And in just studying, I was able to sort of put the pieces together in retrospect to figure out what was going on then, what was going on now, and what happened in between. So that was the part that was missing.
So was it a process of elimination because you were intimately in the home? You were able to do that?
Not so much a process of elimination, but more so piecing the puzzles together. She, you know, there were so many different diagnoses that were thrown out there, but ultimately her being told that it was all in her head, I knew that wasn't true. So, you know, I'm like, okay, so now what are we doing?
Now what is it? So when you called her and said, I think I know, do you remember her reaction?
I think she just started crying.
I think I'm a little emotional. I really am.
You started crying.
I did.
Is it because you knew that she'd figured out? Because I mean, my sibling called Todd, I love you. Like, I figured I'd be like, let me talk to Mom. I'm not sure if you did. You had confidence in her and you knew that call was the answer.
Because a name helps to make it real in the eyes of others. I always knew that something was wrong, but I didn't know what to call it.
So you figured out the name of what she has, which is?
Hirschsprung's disease.
And that is the abdominal condition that she was suffering with, and you knew the surgery that she would need to make her better.
Yes.